Hello everyone and welcome to the Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. One of the things we really try to impress on younger folks here at the studio, as well as those in the audience, is just how much things have changed since we were their ages. There really is no way anyone older than, say, maybe 50, to pick any age range, could say that this is the same country anymore when they were young. It's not. Church Militant, for example, because we have firsthand knowledge, had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars simply to exercise our First Amendment rights to free speech and assembly in a blatantly obvious case of those rights being trampled by the city of Baltimore last year. Likewise, it has now become apparent Obama, Biden, and Hillary remade the intelligence agencies by appointing Marxist-friendly leaders, and they turned around and used the DOJ and the FBI to spy on Trump and destroy his bid for president. Everything that has happened since is because that initial plan failed. Likewise, with the obvious exception of what the Holy Spirit protects and guarantees, this isn't even the same church anymore, humanly speaking. Men who do not believe the Catholic faith are in charge of administering the Catholic faith. The world many of us grew up in simply no longer exists. It's gone. What will be here in likely short order, we can't say for certain, but we do know that the enemies of Christ, including those enemies in the church, we know what they want that world to look like. They've told us. Extremely important to keep in mind is that the enemies of Christ in the church are in league with the enemies of Christ outside the church. They share the same worldview, and that worldview is totally inverted from what it once was. For example, in the last few days, the official, unofficial report from the German Bishops' Synod has come out recommending women be ordained and sodomites be married in the church. Likewise, all over the political battlefield, Democrats are wrapping themselves in the American flag. Democrats, and pounding the theme that they love America. Anyone who opposes them is a terrorist or an insurrectionist, unpatriotic, however you want to frame it. That was the heart of Biden's Hitlerian speech a couple weeks ago, that the Democrats are the only ones who can save democracy. You talk about inverted clown world. The entire culture is crumbling, and the rate at which it is crumbling, and it has picked up speed, is astonishing. For the moment, there are still some places you can pretend that none of this is happening. There are still vestiges of the prior country and the prior church, which give the head in the sand crowd a place to feel comfortable. But those too will be gone soon enough, because evil needs complete and total subservience to it. The goal of the enemies of Christ has never been about tolerance or dialogue. It's always been about domination, period, nothing less. While it's true that more people are now waking up to all of this, the question is, will enough people wake up to it? And even if they do, will they step forward and make the necessary sacrifices to push back and end this, to reclaim and restore what once was? That is going to be a very tall order. The enemies of Christ have been at this so long, generations now, that they have succeeded in producing multiple generations of idiots, political, philosophical, and theological idiots who know nothing of the prior country and the prior church. They have no living memory of it. Enormous numbers of Americans and Catholics in America, tens and tens of millions of people we're talking about, have no conception of how life used to be, what an authentic spiritual life was, what being patriotic was. Those notions aren't even on their radar. They never enter into their consciousness. They have been deprogrammed, in a sense, from even being human. Their intellects, their ability to think critically are simply gone, unless it's about some pop star or athlete or this week's social media fad. They've grown up in a world where killing children is fine. Men having anal sex with each other is fine. Hooking up is fine. Shacking up is fine. And to actually oppose any of that makes you a problem. You're judgmental or homophobic or a white Christian nationalist who is a threat to society and democracy. Threats always have to be dealt with, by the way. But in addition to being perverted intellectually, they've also been twisted psychologically. They've been taught for decades that they are special, that their feelings are what matter, that they are entitled to whatever they want, even so far as signing a note promising to pay off student loans and then not having to. Every single story we hear about as news is really just one more step along the way to complete the inversion of the culture, the refashioning of the armed forces, the insanity in America's classroom curriculums, little children being exposed to drag queens. Every one of these is meant to dull your intellect and eventually your morals by constant repetition and exposure until you just see it as no big deal. Sure, you may not like it, but you come to accept it, all of it. And then, once that is achieved, they set out to move the goalposts again. What they've been able to achieve is not some physically violent overthrow, but a well-orchestrated takeover. The exact same thing has happened in the church. Why would gay-friendly bishops and their largely homosexual clergy want to destroy the church, its institutions, its edifices, its appearances? Those are all extremely helpful to their final goal, which is not the destruction of the church, but the destruction of the faith. All the human aspects of the church, its money, its prestige, its far-flung influence, all of that, those are powerful weapons in the hands of the enemies of Christ in robes. They need those things to accomplish their designs, just like the Democrats need the framework of the Republic to eventually demolish it. Where all this is going to end, where will it arrive, of course, no one can say. But we can say with absolute certainty, we are nowhere even resembling where we once were. Since Marxism, socialism, communism, it's all the same thing, first arrived on the scene of human affairs, it has scored victory after victory, with only a few setbacks here and there, and even those may have been tactical retreats in a sense. The nation, and most importantly the church, have been invaded. And if you are not actively engaged in this fight in whatever way you can be, you're part of the problem. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.